Welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, Ollie Marchon, and I'm here joined by our Head of Nutrition, Mr. Liam Holmes. We put some question boxes out on our respective Instagram channels to ask you guys any questions associated to nutrition and supplementation. We've distilled those questions down into a couple of topics. We're going to ask some specific questions and then talk broadly about nutrition and supplementation to hopefully answer some of these questions for you and give you guys clarity. Before we start, this is not a money grab. You'll see some very careful product placement in the background. Obviously, we're talking about Marchon supplements, but for us, we very much come from a food-first approach. We want to make sure we're talking and discussing from a food-first approach when we answer some of these questions. So considerations around protein, carbohydrates, timing, etc., and what your meals can be comprised of, but then also maybe linking to gaps in that strategy for how you would use some of this targeted supplementation. So I want to make that very clear. Whilst we are going to be talking about these supplements, I want you to take note of the broader conversation that we're going to have. We've split our supplement range into three main categories: training specific, recovery specific, and kind of more lifestyle health specific. And I think that kind of covers a lot of bases. And some of these questions that we've been asked kind of allude to some of these topics as well. So I think we'll start with, if you don't mind, Liam, talking about kind of nutrition considerations for training. And I think if we bracket this down into the early morning trainer and the evening trainer, and then maybe the person that trains for 60 minutes to 90 minutes, which is, I guess, is most of our audience. And then the people that are crazy enough to take on endurance challenges or endurance events that start to think about 2-3 hours, maybe even 5 hours. And then the last little niche population I want to try and touch on is what should you be thinking about when it's kind of a full day's worth of competing? Think functional fitness event or BJJ competition. You can maybe throw in there, you've got a weight cut and rehydration, that kind of stuff. So quite a lot to talk about, but let's talk about kind of training nutrition. So that pre and during nutrition.
For me, when we look at training nutrition, I think often people default to post-workout is like the thing that I need to nail and the thing that I need to focus on. Whereas for me, I think pre-workout can often be more important than post. Like if you're not addressing your pre-workout nutrition, whether this is through nutrition, meals, snacks, whatever, hydration and supplementation, you're not going to necessarily get the most out of that session. So focusing purely on post-workout, you're kind of missing the boat. So I think if you can really nail that pre-workout, you're going to get the most out of your session. I think this starts with the basics, and I think that's going to be a common theme throughout this conversation. Like we're not going to be, telling you or providing these weird and wonderful strategies. It is kind of looping back to these world-class basics. But I think for me, hydration, fueling for the work required, fueling for the type of session that you're doing, making sure you're bringing in what your body composition goal, your training goal is. This is going to help you to kind of like solidify what strategy it is. But hydration is a fundamental, it's a foundation. So for an early morning trainer, you're obviously coming off a sleep, over the night where you have minimal time to be hydrated. So you are going to be at risk of being dehydrated. Obviously, when it's hotter and, depending if, how you're sleeping, you're going to be at risk. So I think getting up and getting hydrated is essential. I would then, if you're training, put electrolytes into that. I think having 300 to 500 ml of water plus some electrolytes, as soon as you wake up or as soon as possible is a sensible strategy just to kickstart that hydration process. And then it depends, we can go down the route of training fasted. Is it superior? Is it inferior? I think for me, depending on the type of the session, and for most of us that are training 45 minutes to 60 minutes, I think trying to fit some carbohydrates in there is going to be a sensible strategy. I think, most people that have trained fed or with some fuel often report lower RPE, they find that their session quality is better, they're more focused, they're switched on, and ultimately that's going to help you to get better. If you take you, for example, if you're training, strength based or any interval based on a running session, you want to try to put some fuel into there. Genuinely, this is why we created workout fuel. I saw it when I was coaching people that there was a real gap, trying to fit a snack in there, like a banana bread or some, a small bar or some dried fruit. And most of the time it didn't really fit or sit well with people. Couldn't really fit it in. So getting some liquid carbohydrates in there was was for us where we kind of create a workout fuel. If you take you, for example, running, if you're doing a low intensity session, very zone 2 based, training fasted is completely fine because the intensity doesn't dictate that you need loads of fuel. But if you're doing 45, 60 minutes, 90 minutes of relatively high intensity or some interval based stuff, there's going to be a higher demand, more glycolytic, more, glycogen dependent. And for me, that's when you can get some carbohydrates in.
It's a really good framing here. So let's just dive into a couple of bits of those. So hydrating. Now, I take my hydration first thing in the morning. You've alluded to it being good practice just to wake up, get that box ticked. That then speaks to the fact that should I be taking hydration again if I'm training later on in the day? Now, I know there's nuance here. Everyone's going to be different, sweat rates, type of training, etc. And there's also a load of different formulations on the market when it comes to how much sodium content is in it. So I guess to try and make it as simple as possible, whilst I appreciate it depends, is always going to be the thing that comes up. To make it as simple as possible, are we suggesting hydration first thing in the morning is probably the box being ticked and we can maybe leave that box there?
Yeah.
Or should we think about double servings throughout the day if we've got double days? Is there anything further we just need to consider on hydration and electrolytes?
I think for me, trying to provide personalized hydration strategies for people that are watching this to be like, this is what you need to do. I would get up and get hydrated.
Yeah.
For almost everybody that is training frequently. Right?
And when we say that, what are we talking? Just wake up, glass of water?
I mean, that's a non-negotiable. 500 milliliters of water, I think is a sensible strategy. I think if you are someone that is going to do something a little bit more intense, a little bit more sweatier, or you're just training more frequently across the week, I do think getting some electrolytes in there to just kickstart the hydration process is a sensible strategy. That's for me, the non-negotiable in the morning. Then later in the day, it really does depend. It depends on your diet. It depends on what time, the day you're training. If you're training later in the day, like maybe lunchtime, afternoon, evening, you have more opportunity to be hydrated. And then we get electrolytes from our food. So depending on what your diet looks like, you might be able to, you don't necessarily need another serving of electrolytes. But if you're, maybe you're eating a relatively unprocessed clean diet, which doesn't then provide you a lot of sodium from your food, then you might want to be thinking about taking some electrolytes on top of that again. But if you're someone that, I'm not saying that you're going to be smashing loads of processed foods and loads of salt from it, but, maybe if you're having things that contain sodium, whether that's a snack bar, whether that you're salting your foods, then, maybe you don't need to necessarily put another serving of electrolytes in there. What
are the telltale signs that I might be underdosed on electrolytes?
I mean, commonly brands would be like, cramping, lack of focus, fatigue. Ultimately, there's multiple different symptoms that there isn't necessarily like definitive research. But I mean, like feeling thirsty, even though you're drinking lots of water, like is one. Lack of focus, I think lack of concentration, headaches. Potentially there is some research to suggest that cramping, is about electrolyte imbalance. So if you are frequently cramping, even in like sessions that aren't necessarily that long, then you might feel like, okay, I've got an electrolyte imbalance, whether this is low sodium, high sodium, other potassium, magnesium, etc. Those for me are the ones to kind of like the big rocks to kind of look out for.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, and we spoke about then, so electrolytes, sort of hydrating being a big rock, a fairly simple box to tick and not very expensive one to tick as well. Yeah. Put salt on your food, maybe have a good electrolyte in the cupboard, have that first thing in the morning. Talking about carbohydrates then pre-training, and you've alluded to the different types of training, different energy systems which may be used, therefore the substrate utilization becomes different, right? So in the low, steady state aerobic work you might be doing first thing in the morning, maybe you could get away training fasted. Is it the right thing to do or not? Probably comes down to individual differences and how people feel when they're training. For something in more strength-based, power, higher output, interval sessions, fueling with a carbohydrate is a good thing. Grams, is a certain grams per...
In terms of just a specific pre-workout period?
Well, yeah, so is it like a 30-gram carbohydrate serving, a 40-gram carbohydrate serving? Again, I know there's a lot of nuance around this, but just for a box to tick, we've obviously put 20 grams in this, so let's bring it back to that. Why 20 grams serving in here? And then how can maybe people ratchet that up to maybe account for a longer training session or more demanding training session?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like, there is probably a scale. I mean, if you're eating something maybe 90 minutes, 2 hours, if you have that opportunity in the morning or pre-training, then there's probably a sliding scale in terms of the length of session. If you're looking at something 45 minutes, 60 minutes, for me, 20 to 40 grams is more than adequate as that carb top up. Yeah. Obviously, then there's the bigger conversation around your overall carbohydrate intake and what you're consuming. But in terms of that pre-workout period, I think that's a nice ballpark figure to start with, and depending on the length and the duration and the intensity of your session, you can titrate that up. So if you're going in maybe 90 minutes or it's, part of a double session that day, or, it's maybe like a longer endurance one where you're going 2-3 hours, whether that's on a bike or you're doing a bike and then a run, or a swim and a run, trying to triathlon or Ironman. then you probably need to be up around, zero point 0.5, even maybe 1 gram per kilo of body weight in terms of carbohydrates. So for me, 70 kilos, I might want to be thinking about how can I get 70 grams of carbohydrates in that pre-workout period, in that kind of 90 minutes beforehand. And for me, this is where liquid carbs can be really, really useful. That might be then a mixture. It might be something like a bar or some fruit and, or some pancakes or something like this. And then like a liquid-based carbohydrate top-up.
Whilst we're on the topic of kind of workout fuel, why have we put nootropics in this? What role do they play in exercise performance?
I think anyone that's done like an intense session, you want that focus, you want that drive, you want that feel connected to your workout. There's obviously caffeine's the most popular nootropic, and it can have multiple benefits in terms of increasing power and strength and, focus, reducing fatigue. But we put tyrosine, we put rhodiola rosea in there. We put betaine in there. So some of these are nootropics, some of these are more adaptogenic. And for us, it's just looking at this more holistic approach of helping you fuel your session. It's not just about carbohydrates. It's not just about electrolytes. And I think for us, there's a lot of benefits and use case and research for these types of things for multiple different exercise modalities, whether this is endurance, whether this is more functional fitness, this is more high intensity stuff. So we wanted workout fuel to be this like, not all in one pre-workout, but there's something that for us, our demographic who are doing runs, who are doing strength training, who are doing functional fitness, maybe high rock style things across the week, across the, the month, across the year. This is something that's like, can be a staple. And that would just that connection, that stress resilience, helping you to feel more connected to your workout and not feel fatigued. I mean, rhodiola has this acute and chronic benefit. You feel focused and more connected and more switched on, but you also have this like reduction in fatigue and like that post-workout kind of slump. Rhodiola definitely helps with that type of thing as well.
Brilliant. I mean, that is my favorite product. Sticking with the topic of kind of training, creatine is something that's talked about a lot. Obviously, it's been the press recently in the form of gummies. So let's just give people the, why creatine, who should use it? Is there any kind of, and I guess the other questions that come off the back of this is it something that you should cycle? Should you come on it, off it? Dosage, 5 grams was kind of the staple. Now we're seeing things around 10 grams. Give us a lowdown on creatine.
Yeah, I think creatine has been synonymous with strength and bodybuilders and, that type of demographic, but I think it's becoming more mainstream now, which for me is a really positive thing. I think what I love about supplementation is that, we're always searching for that new ingredient, that kind of novel ingredient that no one else has got in their product. And this can be, the silver bullet and the magic bullet. What I love is when, supplements that are on the market already, there's new research that comes out on it. And we're seeing this with creatine in terms of like, it helps with strength and, energy production, etc. But now there's more in terms of like brain function and cognitive abilities and recovery. So I love it when like something like this, there's kind of more evidence coming out on it. I think 5 grams is still where I would sit for, the majority of the population.
So wrapping up creatine, I mean, one of the questions here was, is it worth taking? I think it's pretty unanimous that certainly worth taking, all populations, all ages. 5 grams as being a good starting point. And then, I think with anything, when it comes to nutrition strategies, training strategies, supplementation strategies, a bit of self-exploration and see what kind of works for you. But I think given the fact it's a fairly cheap supplement, the benefits are very well reported. There's no real negative side effect. Well, in fact, there's no negative side effects to note.
No. I mean, people have a little bit of weight gain, but again, there's good weight gain. Like it's intracellular water, and that's, one of the reasons why you get benefits out of it. Females should be taking it as well. I think I've posted a few times on my socials, and there's more research being done specifically on females, which is fantastic. Costs your lifespan, so it's like young women, old women, some real benefits for perimenopause, postmenopausal women. So, for me, I think it's one that almost becomes in like a bit of a daily staple and almost into that crossing over from that training and health and wellness now. Like there's a bit of a blurred line there. So,
well, we don't have women's formula out in front of us, but I think that's one.
That's why it's in there.
Yeah. We'll maybe talk on women's formula a little bit later. Okay, so we've talked broadly around hydration, carbohydrates pre-training. I guess they're kind of the big rocks, things that people should be thinking about, and then you can start to like, I guess there's a niche down into other products. And this is something that's a little bit niche, a little bit new, very innovative. We're very fond of it and obviously proud of it. Peak endurance. So in here we have Pico 2, which is a blend of adaptogenic mushrooms, and we also have a very high strength beetroot extract.
Yeah.
So why would someone take peak endurance? I suppose, why would someone take beetroot? It's something that people have become popular, taking beetroot shots pre-marathon, 5 days out, loading up with the shots every day. They taste like, I mean, anyone that likes the taste of that is a little bit weird. And obviously mushrooms becoming this kind of emerging trend and topic over the last couple of years. We have a couple of questions here, which I'll ask once we've talked broadly about those two things, mushrooms and beetroot extract. What do they do?
Yeah, I mean, for me, putting these two together kind of nodded towards that endurance-specific goal that people have, and finding a way to be able to consistently get these into your body. Like, I take beetroot shots. I didn't like them. I had the constant daily battle to get, footballers and athletes to be, taking them in a shot form. So I always thought that, being able to put it into a capsule that's a little bit easier to consume consistently, was something that, that we always kind of wanted to do. When researching, mushrooms, I'm a big fan. I think that have a lot of benefits. I think you've got to be very careful when you're choosing mushroom products, in terms of like getting one that's either branded or shows you the active amounts, of the active compounds in them. And Pico 2 is one of these. It's from a company in America. It's 2 grams of 6 different adaptogenic mushrooms, but it's been clinically studied to show a benefit in terms of endurance performance, improving, your VO2 max, improving time to fatigue, this type of thing that really looks towards someone that is trying to improve their performance. So yeah, mushrooms have a lot of other benefits in terms of maybe cognitive function and immunity, etc. But we really wanted to put ones in there that help with, training specific. Blending that with the nitrates helps with almost like in this synergistic fashion where you get this increase in blood flow, you get this exercise endurance benefit from beetroot and nitrates that has been well documented in terms of helping with that vasodilation, helping with blood flow, helping with muscle function, maybe helping with muscle recovery as well. But then you have the blend of the Pico 2 as well. This is something that we've now, how long's it been out? 9 months, 10 months, maybe. And obviously we are doing the research and putting this together and looking at the literature that's currently out there. But then seeing the anecdotal feedback and seeing people's data on their Garmins and watches and the feedback, it's been wild. Like, it's genuinely been something that has blown me away. I mean, one of the benefits is reducing the oxygen cost of exercise, right? Which, in simple terms, helping you be more efficient. So you're running the same pace at a lower heart rate, which obviously makes you a little bit more efficient. This has been shown on a couple of the pieces of research, and that is a consistent theme that we see. People going, it feels easier, my breathing feels easier, like I'm running at a better, running at a higher pace at the same heart rate. And obviously it's stuff like high rock, stuff like endurance, like if you can manage your heart rate, like, that's an enormous win. So, obviously for me, that's probably the number one thing that we've seen in terms of that feedback. But again, individuals will find different benefits, but, there's a lot of literature behind these two things. Speaking to the company that produced Pico 2, they got some more clinical studies coming out as well, which I'm really excited to be able to share to people. So for me, I think this is a really unique product to us, but something that we're seeing real benefit with.
How, obviously this is a bit more of like a niche product in the sense that creatine hydration, we think broadly everyone could be taking it. It's cost effective and the bang for your buck is considerable. If you're thinking about this, we'd suggest that you are a little bit more, I guess, intentful in terms of your output, your times you're trying to race. You're probably a little bit more competitive and you've entered into it, as you said, the high rocks, the half marathon, etc. How far out from competition should you be taking this? Like, is this something you can take year round, or is there kind of a kind of protocol that you would advise? Yeah,
I mean, when we launched it, we put together a protocol through our testing and through the literature to be like 4 weeks out was kind of what we suggested as a kind of minimum effective dose. This was based on the Pico 2 literature, based on some of the nitrate stuff as well in terms of that shorter benefits, but also kind of a lot of the nitrate research kind of tapped out around kind of 6 to 8 weeks in terms of the shots, and extract research. So for me, I think if you're looking at a minimal effective dose, go 4 weeks before a race. That's going to help you to, support that peak in your training, because normally we get that kind of peak around, maybe 2 weeks out, then you get that little taper and then you got your race. So you're kind of helping support that as well as your race day. We've then extended it now, people kind of taking 8 weeks out to get, again, that training benefit as well as the race day, competition day. But then we also have people now, using it more chronically, more long term. And for me, I think it's something there where there's not necessarily needed for a loading phase. So what we are advising people to do now is take it kind of 4 days, 3-4 days a week, for a longer period of time. Again, helping that to augment that training adaptation, helping with that stress resilience. Mushrooms have so many different benefits, and, nitrates, even though we're told to be consuming them in our diet, I mean, for me, I don't consume that much beetroot. I don't consume that much like leafy greens in excess to be able to get enough nitrates in my diet. So, for me, I think, again, where we kind of loop back to that initial conversation that you had there, for me, supplementation needs to be focused on plugging gaps in your diet. Now, if you're someone that is smashing beetroot all of the time and having excessive amounts of nitrates not excessive amounts, but lots of nitrates in your diet, then you probably don't need to be taking either this for a longer period of time, and you can kind of focus it just specifically for that 4-week period, or you can take a lower dose to get the benefits of the mushroom. So for me, this is where supplements can then plug the gap in terms of your diet, be very targeted and periodized around what you're doing.
Nice. So one of the specific questions here was peak endurance. I'm 15 weeks out from a marathon. When should I start taking it? I think we've kind of answered. At the very latest, 4 weeks out for that kind of race day adaptation. If you can get away with 8 weeks out or even 12 weeks out, even starting now, if the bank balance will allow, this is a great product.
Yeah, exactly.
We have seen, we get tagged in so many amazing messages from people of the benefits of this. But as I said, just make sure that you are spending your money wisely on supplements, because there are so many to choose from. This is very good if you're entering into the high rocks, the marathon space, and your endurance performance means something to you.
Yeah.
Okay. Sticking with the training theme, we're almost there. The endurance fuel, one of the latest products we brought out, and obviously going back to this kind of idea of fueling and carbohydrates. This is something we brought out very recently. It's, the hype is very real, and I think it's justified. It's something now I can't live without, which is another product in the supplement stack. Why do we do this? What kind of benefits do gels have? Easily digestible carbohydrates in forms that are, easy to consume. Yeah. When would you use that? Why have we done it?
Yeah. Gels, anyone that's done endurance training, I'm sure that they bought a pack of gels, whether they use them consistently or whether they've just, left them in a cupboard. Like, you will be synonymous with them and use them consistently. I think gels are popular in endurance because they're transportable. So if you're running, if you're on the bike, whatever, getting carbohydrates during your training is, especially with the length of training that endurance training dictates, you need it. You need to be able to ensure that you're, adequately supporting your glycogen stores, fueling your performance to get the most out of it. And I think, we understand now that the importance of intra-workout fueling for endurance. Like, it's something that you need to be doing. Creating a gel was a long process for us. It's something that I'd never done before. You never done before. Lauren never done before. But as you were doing more marathons, as people are doing more longer endurance work and asking more of their bodies, I think it was a stable for us to put it into our product range. And for me, it's something that having the unflavored, having the caffeine based, just gives a little bit of flexibility for people to be able to hit their intra workout fueling. Now, and I think I had a number of questions in terms of how much should I be taking on during my training, and the amounts. Do I need to be taking more if I'm a heavier person? So let me try and simplify like intra workout fueling. For me, if you've never done anything in terms of endurance training, and you just start, like maybe your marathon training, maybe you're going to a half Ironman, whatever. You've got to start small, okay? Often people get like GI distress and stomach issues when they haven't never done anything. Then they start marathon training or going on the bike, and then all of a sudden they're trying to get to 60, 90 grams of carbs straight away. Whatever gel that you take, you're probably going to have GI issues because you're not used to it. You haven't trained your gut, and you'll probably, as you read a little bit more about it, you'll hear this term come up. So for me, whenever you're starting out, start small. So focus on that pre-workout nutrition that we spoke about. And then to start with like one gel, that's 30 grams of carbs. I found that to be a decent amount to allow you to, play a little bit of like, carbohydrate and amount Tetris across your hour. So like 30, 60, 90 grams. That's where most of the literature kind of sits. More kind of elite athletes now pushing higher than that. but it just allows you to just simply increase this as you increase your training volume, as you increase your training intensity, and as you train your gut. And I think, if you can start with that kind of process, you're probably going to see a lot more success than just going, I need to be getting up to 60, 90 grams an hour straight away. So I think having that as a gel, having the workout fuel as a people are using it intra on the bike, on runs as well, is again that 20 grams of carbs. So all of a sudden you've got 50 grams of carbs there. Then you can use chews and other bits and carbohydrate powders to be able to again play around with it. We have lots of resources on our website, Instagram, etc. for that. But that's my biggest tip. You've got to start small.
Yeah, I suppose reference back to the 2 podcasts we actually recorded on nutrition that talk broadly kind of about these topics, that may be a good place to start if some of this stuff is over your head, or you need a little bit more clarity on that. Go back and watch those 2 episodes. In terms of fueling for some of those specific races, you put some amazing infographics and diagrams on your social media page, so I'd suggest you go look at that too. I mean, what was really interesting about this is, in terms of use case for myself and obviously other people that I've seen use it, it's very specific for like marathon training or in the marathon, ripping through the gels. But I've actually been finding it's a great kind of, not pre-workout, but it's a great thing to have before I work out, because sometimes I may not have fuel readily available, or I don't want to eat something because it's really close to workout time. This just slips down really easy. I know that I'm not going to fatigue towards the latter stage of that training session. So I had this, before my run yesterday, rather than take out on my run. I had it before just to top myself up, because I trained about 11 o'clock. On Sunday, I went cycling with the boys that had never taken gels before, or had taken gels and had a really bad experience, were ripping through this. And about 20 minutes later, one of them was like, "Fuck, what was in that? That was incredible." Just because that combination of, it was first thing in the morning, sort of 6:30 a.m., that combination of carbohydrates and caffeine. Probably these people aren't used to necessarily fueling first thing in the morning, just go out on the bike and get it done. All of a sudden, 40 Ks into the bike ride, they have some of that and they're like, oh shit, like I had that. They actually felt this surge of energy kind of come through, which is really cool.
100%, mate. I think when people start this endurance-based training journey, where there is, they haven't done it before, there's often a massive gap between what they're currently eating and their fuel requirements. So again, understanding energy balance is probably I know I've said my biggest tip, but understanding what your body requires to perform the level of activity that you're doing cannot be underestimated in terms of the importance of that. People will be like, it's fine, I can go on a 2 or 3 hour ride, no problem. Yeah, you can, but then often what happens is the next day your strength tanks, you're hungry all the time, then you're on this roller coaster across your week of like, I'm eating, overeating, then I'm like, I'm eating too much, so I'll cut down. Then you're asking your body to train really hard for 2 hours, and then you're cutting down. So for me, really trying to be sensible with your fueling when you're starting your endurance training, and even when you're getting into really starting to take it a little bit more seriously, I think that's when supplementation can be a really, really helpful thing. If you're just starting out, just being more conscious with your nutrition and just fueling properly and eating well, you can have massive gains in terms of your fitness. But when you get a little bit more dialed in, and when you really are trying to put the hammer down, then I think that's when things like this can be, and like you say, the feedback there is just a perfect example of what we see every time. When you get your fueling right, it's a game changer. I
think you hit the nail on the head there. Is like when you're starting out, it's just like slowly layering in and seeing what's working.
Definitely.
The training your gut thing, the adding new products in, and getting that kind of real-time feedback from yourself, taking into consideration all the bits of information that you can maybe consume around these products. The other thing is that many people already have a reference point, to the person that asked the questions about a BJJ competition and the weight cut. They've probably gone through that a number of times. And so when you've got a reference point of what you're currently doing and what that equates to in terms of your output, your performance, then you can start to think about, okay, if I can get some easy digestible carbohydrates in, whether it's workout fuel, an energy gel, or any other product on the market, put that in, put that in maybe a gel every couple of hours if you've got a long competition, and just see how you feel. Did your energy levels increase? Did your performance increase? Was the output higher? And start to layer in rather than making wholesale changes, because that's often where people can kind of go wrong. Yeah, to wrap up the training section, just bringing back to the workout fuel, one of the questions we get asked often is, why did we not put the electrolytes in the workout fuel? That would make sense, right? Many of us training first thing in the morning, you're having your workout fuel, you're getting your carbohydrates, you're getting your nootropics, you're dialed in, you're also trying to hydrate, so you've got 2 different drinks. Why didn't we do it initially? Is it something we're going to think about? I obviously know the answers to these questions, but please let the audience know.
I mean, this is probably the question I get asked the most, when I talk about workout fuel. I think for me, electrolytes, human nature, right? We find something that is beneficial, and then we just take it to the extreme, and we're like, well, electrolytes are benefit. Like, we should just be taking every single thing that piece of water that we take, drink, every single product. Let's just chuck electrolytes in it because they're beneficial. They are, but I think there's a real thing of over-indexing, electrolytes. And what I didn't want to do is just chuck electrolytes into every single product that we do. I think that's lazy formulation. I think it's not necessarily needed. Like, again, if people are eating a well-balanced diet and maybe they're not training first thing in the morning and they're using workout fuel, do they need another 500, 750 or whatever, 1,000 milligrams of sodium? Maybe not. Is that going to then potentially cause an imbalance? Is it going to cause, if they're not taking it with that much water, is it going to cause dehydration? And actually do the opposite thing of what we want it to achieve. If you're taking too much sodium, you're going to be dehydrated. So it's like, I didn't want to put it in there because it allowed yet less utility, less personalization in terms of the supplement range. Now, we also created workout fuel as this kind of more pre-workout that can go across a lot of domains. And now it's probably moved into more of the endurance-based kind of market, where there's maybe more efficacy in terms of the electrolytes. So I'm not saying that we won't, but it's definitely something on, future reformulations that we might consider putting in a certain dose of it. But again, you're putting in, it's making the scoop even bigger. It's making the product more expensive. It's changing the flavor profile. There's a lot of things that go into these reformulations rather than just being like, oh, that's fine. Just chuck some electrolytes in it. So we have to, when you're talking about supplement formulation, you have to think about these types of things. And I'm like, for me at the moment, if you're training, like say workout fuel, we have a caffeine-free version as well, which people are taking later in the day. Do they need electrolytes like we alluded to earlier? Maybe not. So I felt that rather than just being lazy, I think that, for the moment, for the foreseeable, we won't be, but never say never.
Lovely. Let's put training to bed. Now, obviously we started with training because most people associated with this channel and this brand are probably training obsessed. But where we should have really started is in that kind of health space, because a health human is a high performing human. Now in this kind of health bucket, lifestyle bucket, we've got a number of different products. What are and some of the things we spoke about, fueling well is obviously going to be the kind of the main place to start when it comes to, being healthy, sleep, all that kind of stuff. But from like a health and lifestyle bucket, we've got things like omegas, we've got the multivitamin, which is in front of me here. We've got the sleep coming out. We've got, probably curcumin, maybe could drop into that.
Yeah.
We've got the vitamin D, loads of stuff. So it's tough to know where to start here. Let's go with the multivitamin. Yeah. What are people missing from their diet when it comes to these products, and what are I suppose essential, and what could they maybe first port of call explore in their actual nutrition first and foremost before they start thinking about products?
That's a really good point. I think for me, I've posted this piece of content a couple of times and it doesn't get as much engagement as I really want it to, but the process of going through a diet audit for me, I think is a valuable task, right? That people do, but I don't think many people do, in terms of tracking their food and maybe using a tracking app that looks at micronutrient content and looking at maybe 3 to 5 days, maybe even a week, and seeing what gaps are in your nutrition, because most of us are fairly repetitive for what we do, right? You might then see oh, I'm low in this, I'm high in this, micronutrient. What that's then doing is looking at, okay, where can I plug gaps? Number one. Number two is getting some blood work done, looking at what's under the hood. It's very hard to get ones that are done in terms of blood work, in terms of actual deficiencies, vitamin C deficiency doesn't show up, but there's signs and symptoms that will allow you to be okay, well, there's something deficient in here, there's an imbalance here that can help guide your food choices. Maybe that's iron, maybe it's vitamin D, maybe it's in, your omega index. All of these things can help you to paint a picture of what's going on with you. And then you can look at things that are more challenging to get from food alone, right? So, look at omegas, even though, oh yeah, I eat oily fish, I'm distill it down, how many times do you actually eat oily fish? It might be 1 or 2 times. And if you're buying the cheap salmon or the cheap fish, how much omegas are in that? It might be relatively low. So for me then, if you've gone through, looked at your diet, looked at your blood work, then you can start to be thinking about, okay, where do I need to maybe plug my gap from supplementation that I'm not getting it through food, or it's hard to get it through food alone. That's how you can then start to build this kind of health stack effectively. And for me, a multivitamin, is something that then can plug these gaps, and as we are, well, people that are watching this and you and me, you're asking more of your body, right? So potentially the requirement for micronutrients is way more than the RDA. So getting that from food alone while balancing your calorie intake can then be, again, another challenge to do. So all of a sudden I need more B vitamins, I need more vitamin C, I need more magnesium, because my muscles are doing much more than someone that is sedentary sitting at a desk and training twice a week. I'm now training 3, 4, 5, days a week, 6 days a week, multiple days, asking a lot of my body. So I need to supply it, literally from a cellular, foundational, physiological point of view. But it's hard to do from food alone, I think, sometimes. So that's where I think something like a multivitamin can be really, really useful. I think omegas can be really useful from managing inflammation, from cardiovascular health, from brain function. And vitamin D, again, I've spoken about this a couple of times. Even if it's sunny, we might not be outside, we train inside, we work inside, we commute inside, then all of a sudden our sun exposure can be really, really low. So again, looking at your vitamin D is a very cheap test to get done. I think is a really sensible place to start. And we talk about training first, definitely, but we are massively about that kind of 360 approach, health first approach. And that's to performance. And for me, I think it's not as exciting as a peak endurance and a gel, but this is the stuff that's really going to help you from that training, from recovery, from from a health perspective. But you have to go through that process rather than going, Boots have got a multivitamin sale, or someone's got a penny sale, I'll just stock up on a load of random things. I think if you can be a little bit more targeted with it, I think that's how you're going to get some real bang for your buck.
This is a really good topic. I think this is the one that when everyone asks me, what should I go for out of your product range, this is always where I start.
Yeah.
And I think you made the point there. Before you even listen to when I say this is where you should start, do the nutrition recall, 3, 5, 7 days, and actually, whether it's MyFitnessPal, whatever these apps are, it will give you the breakdown. And that's really, you need to do that work first. And if you're someone that just wants to throw money at it, then you're being ignorant to the problem here. So you just do that bit of work first, and then you can start to think about what it is that I should take. And I think in terms of just broadly speaking, a really good multivitamin, the omegas, the creatine and the hydration are a fantastic place to start, just to start to feel better and perform better. The other stuff, like I say, just depends on how far you're pushing your body, what the demands are of your training, and also your competitive calendar throughout that year. We talk a lot about efficacious dosages and making sure things are underdosed and what's in them and the elemental values and all this kind of stuff. And this is something when it comes to these products in particular, because you mentioned Boots and all these other high streets that have got their own branded stuff, often you can be taking this stuff and not be doing anything. So not necessarily needing to just give us the definition of those points, but why are some products a little bit more expensive? Obviously, some brands take the piss here, but why are some products a little bit more expensive? And how important is that formulation and the dosing?
Yeah, it's a really good point. Definitely, I don't want to bore people on this one, but definitely go back and watch the second podcast that we did, because we definitely dive into it a little bit more detail there. But when the importance of dosing in terms of supplementation and the form and the bioavailability, for me, can't be underestimated. If you've got so let's take a multivitamin, because this is a really good point, and omegas will come on to. If you've got a 1 capsule hard pressed, right, to get the amount that you actually need, even to hit the RDA, knowing supplement formulation, it's impossible. Magnesium is a prime example, right? So if you've got magnesium biglycinate, it's 20% elemental value. So that means to get 200 milligrams, I need a gram of powder. Now, I know that you cannot get a gram of powder into that. So if you've got 100 milligrams, it's 500 milligrams of magnesium in it. So what often brands will do is they don't put the actual amount of powder or as magnesium glycinate, they'll just put the elemental value that they put in. So they might put 100 milligrams of it in, but actually you're only then getting 20 milligrams. So then you're like, oh, well, I'm taking a magnesium supplement, I'm taking a multivit, I'm not really seeing anything. Same as B vitamins, there's more bioavailable forms, so it's basically less work for your body to be able to digest them and use them. Again, poorer forms, they're cheaper, that's why brands put them in, but the body isn't using them. You're not getting the most out of that certain B vitamin. That's very, very common. because people don't want to take a lot of pills. Brands want to make a lot more money in terms of their margins. But ultimately, what we did is try to, and a lot of brands are doing it, they buck the trend. Problem is, it does make it a little bit more expensive. Or you've got to be taking a few more pills than maybe you would like to.
I think with the recent news that's come out with creatine gummies and a lot of these products not having any creatine in, you can probably understand now why a lot of these products are professed to have, let's use magnesium on one capsule. You're probably not getting the amount you need. So it's a waste of time. I think that kind of like logic makes sense now you've seen it in creatine. You can imagine it takes place across all of the kind of supplement industry where things are being underdosed and it's maybe being shown on the packet, but it's not necessarily what's inside that capsule. And to Liam's point, we would love to be able to, distill this down or consolidate capsules down to being 1 or 2 pills to reduce pill fatigue and make it easier for people to maybe take a number of different products at once. But the realization is that we've had to, sometimes have 2 pills, 3 pills, etc., so that we can give people, the top end of the dose they need to ensure that whatever they're spending their money on is going to return some benefit. So,
just on that, a little bit of a side note, the rise of people doing testing on creatine gummies, and it's happened across a lot of other products as well. Like, other brands will pick products off of Amazon and test them, and then show what is in the actual product. And I understand why the supplement industry gets a bad name. Like, it's wild, in terms of like how little is in these products. The creatine gummy is fantastic. I think this is a fantastic thing that's happening in the industry, even though brands are getting called out. I mean, they should do, if they're literally, some of them have no creatine in, which is absolutely crazy. And you see the numbers that they're making. I'm like, it's enormous. But it was one of the reasons that I pushed hard and we pushed hard for having third-party lab testing. Like our creatine, we will be, we've shared the results, on socials. We are third-party lab testing all of our supplements, which for us is something that we really want to bang the drum for. That trust and transparency in terms of like, yes, we are telling you this is in the product, but this is actually what's in it. It doesn't have heavy metals. It doesn't have, what we do, we're testing for toxins in terms of, the omegas and things. And we're showcasing this. And I think that is something that should be industry standard. And I think it's moving towards that, especially in America and more so over here now. And brands can't, hopefully hide behind this. And I think then, we're going into the banned substance testing. But I think a lot of brands will hide behind that banned substance testing going, we've been tested. But you can, Overload is a great example. They were informed sport tested. But they had no creatine in.
We'll touch on that band because that's one of the questions here.
Yeah, side note, sorry.
No, it's a good side note. It's a good tangent that we can weave into. Just to sort of make that perfectly clear. Third-party lab testing, you pay for, so every product we have to pay to have that third-party lab tested, and it's basically them testing that what we say is in it is actually in it, and then you get your report, and that's when then we can publish that on the website to give you confidence that what we're saying is in it is actually in it. I think the creatine gummy thing and what you're saying there about Amazon, the barrier to entry to starting a brand and creating a product and finding a manufacturer, whether it's in China or wherever else it may be, is extremely low. And so all you're looking at is like, what are the best selling supplements, whether it's on social media or on Amazon, and then you're just creating a brand, over 24 hours, finding the product and then just selling it. There's no one that sits behind it that's either a nutrition coach or has spent 10 years in formulations and in the industry, understands the consumer. They just understand what is selling, how to market it, and then just get going. So it is the Wild West. And I think this move into third-party lab testing has been fantastic for us, which then speaks to this idea then of the banned substance testing. So it's something we've not done from the get-go. We've spoke about it. We've talked about it internally for ever since we started. It is now something we're doing with all of our products. Yeah. Again, it's a little bit like the Wild Wild West. And sometimes you speak to some of these companies and the sort of fees that they charge, you can tell it's a bit of a money grab from some. But it is really important, obviously, to give the tested athletes full confidence in what they're taking. And obviously the liability sits with the athletes, right? And the brands they have a duty of care for these athletes to make sure that, their products are clean of any banned substances. So what was that decision like? Why have we made it? When can we expect it all to be rolling out?
Well, the products are actually landed in the lab now. So all of our products are actually, as we speak, as we record this, they're being tested. So hopefully this is going to be released very, very soon. We canvassed the opinion on 3 different companies, the main 3 companies in the world. And we just chose one that fit better with our product range, and allowing us to offer the complete product range to athletes with real confidence. It allows a little bit more flexibility in terms of when we can get batch testing. So we are going to be, making sure that all of our batches are done. So again, athletes, teams, whoever can have real confidence. I think for me, having both of those, the third party lab testing and that kind of transparency, and the banned substance testing, it's so expensive. And I understand why brands don't do it. Like it's so expensive, but now we're at a point where for us, we need to have that stamp of approval. So I'm really excited about it, because I think it's a question we get frequently. To box that off is good.
Yeah, I think from a commercial standpoint, obviously building this business, back in the day, the main people that sort of took sports nutrition and that would help you market sports nutrition were the professional athletes and the professional clubs. So you would need to kind of go down that route to get them on side to be able to help you kind of push your product out. Now you can use social media, different influencers, and marketing a product is far easier. And also the kind of pool of people that may take it, the highly sophisticated fitness consumer, the person that goes to the gym 5 days a week, they're running the half marathon, etc. They're not tested, and they don't really care whether things are tested. And 99.9% of the time, products are absolutely fine.
Yeah.
And they don't get contaminated. And so the need to go banned substance tested has not really been there for a number of brands, and particularly us in the kind of early days. But we do want to start to work with those teams as individuals, and also, get people on board, that can really provide the inspiration and, show what it means to just kind of live this life without limits and be aligned with those values that we have. So, really exciting for us, soon to be announced that we will have all our products batch tested and ready to go with all of you tested athletes. Okay. So we're going to wrap up the, kind of health daily lifestyle products with, these next two, which are very exciting. So one of the questions was, when is the sleep product coming out? What's in it? Why have we done it? I know you're very excited about this. We've just been talking during the interlude about your sleep last night and the wake time only being 8 minutes, having taken this. Talking about advanced sleep. Yeah. We don't need to talk about the benefits of sleep. I think actually, first and foremost,
that is a bit boring.
If you're,
to be repeated.
If you need to understand the benefits of sleep, go use ChatGPT. I mean, you're missing a huge trick here. This is, trying to optimize that kind of recovery piece and the sleep piece is super important. A very big rock to try and start with, but this is something we want to try and bring into the mix to aid with people's sleep. So
I think you touched on it there. Like, it is a sleep product, but we really want to make sure that it had things in there to help with that recovery side of things as well. And again, like with all of our products having that real purpose, and I think I really would hang my hat on that. That is definitely something in our range. It's like every product has a purpose. There's a reason behind it. There's a reason why the formulation come about, but there's a really clear use case of it. The sleep side of things is, there's a very popular supplement area. But we really wanted to put, I think we've got 7 ingredients in there that are put in there for specific reasons. And it's almost helping from different ways. Right, I won't reveal the formula, but it's helping with relaxation. It's helping with the specific neurotransmitters that help with sleep. It helps with calming that nervous system. It's helping with muscle recovery. It's helping with stress. It's helping to reduce cortisol. And it's helping you to fall asleep quicker, to improve that sleep latency. So we did a lot of research in terms of pulling these types of things in. One's from stuff that I've used previously. That there's a couple of ingredients in there that not a lot of people have used, can help with growth hormone release, which is natural when we sleep in the first kind of part of sleep. But we wanted to put things in there that helped with that, like, recovery. And for me, going through that testing process, what we saw was, if you have issues with the sleep, it definitely helps you to kind of fall asleep quicker. But it was those that are maybe good, but then just needed that, like, how can I get my deep sleep up? Why is my REM sleep not, I'm doing all of the right things. And what this found was it just bumped that up. Like, we've got data on now, like, people going from like 30, 40 minutes of like REM sleep up to like, 1 hour 20. Same with deep sleep. It was just like that 20, 30% increase. That's not with everybody, but definitely with some. And then the most common thing was the reduction in awake time. And that was a real consistent theme across a lot of people. So, obviously, if you can, lower the amount that your body's actually awake, improves that quality of REM sleep and deep sleep, and a kind of nod to that recovery side of things as well. For me, this is, this is going to be a really, really nice addition for us. For those that also train in the evening, I'm excited about this, because when I was working in elite sport, most of the competitions or the evening games and, or competitions were in the evening. So like getting something in that post-game, post-training period was always really, really hard. There wasn't really one thing. So we had to almost like pull a couple of things in, and then ultimately then compliance was like really low. So I was always about like trying to create something that didn't hurt someone's adaptations, but helped them to calm down and get into a healthy sleep. Obviously there's always going to be, it's not ideal, but if you have to train in the evening, you're training 7, 8, maybe even 9 p.m., trying to get into that, and optimize your sleep is super challenging. I definitely think that that's where this can be slotted in.
I've spent the best part of 2 decades protecting my sleep like an absolute crusader.
Your missus has done it.
Oh, my wife's obviously helped when the kids came along, but more recently, and this is a Crimea River situation, training jiu-jitsu in the evenings, like on those days, it starts to give me anxiety, because I know that I'm going to lie there wide awake till like 11 p.m. and usually I'm kind of fast asleep by about 9 p.m. So, yeah, really looking forward to using this consistently. Out of 10, how excited are you? If this was like what would you say you were excited about?
That was to see the workout feels has got a special place in my heart.
So if that's 10 out of 10,
yeah,
how excited are you about this?
I'd say it's a real solid 9.
Wow.
I would genuinely say, I think that I think for our product range as well. I think it really was over the next 6 months. I feel like every product is just going to keep layering on that extra kind of brick. And I feel that the product range is good at the moment, but there's gaps, right? If we're looking at across a training block, across a year, across different demographics. And I feel that every product over the next 6 months is really it's just going to keep, just adding more weight to this. So I'm really excited.
One of the questions was, what is in the sleep product? But I think you can tell from his answer that he doesn't want to discuss the formulation just yet.
I mean, it's coming out soon. So
it is coming out soon. And just for clarity, and for, we discussed at length ways in which we could deliver some of these products in this product. So was it going to be a hot chocolate? Could it be like an after dinner mousse? Some of the OGs remember the casein pudding, so like a revamp of the kind of pudding situation. Fundamentally, we always come back to like, how do we get an efficacious dose into the product and make it functionally a good product first and foremost, and then those other kind of innovative ways of delivering it to you are just the icing on the cake. But we landed on capsules, right? The other thing, sleep, sort of liquid sleep products. We were questioning, if someone's having to neck 300 milliliters of a sleep drink, are they then going to get woken up in the middle of the night because they need to go for a piss? So safety first. We thought, let's get people to bed with capsule.
Yeah, I mean, I think with all of our products, we've gone at length talking about different delivery formats, unique formats, whether this is shots, whether this is gummies, whether this is powders, sachets, pills, gels. We really talk at length at this. And I sit there thinking, how can we do this? Like, to diversify the range, but also make sure that we're just delivering it in the right format. And I think for me, like, the hot chocolate, it sounds nice. And I'm like, but I don't really want to drink that in the summer. All of a sudden you got a product that you're only going to drink 3 months of the year. Again, if you go down the route of like a sachet or a powder, again, you've got to put it into a sachet. Then you have the taste barrier. I don't like cherry. I don't like honey and ginger. I don't like this. So it's like
there are some of the sleep products that are sachets and they are god awful. I don't know how some of the
things in there are funky, and you want to put things in there that that work. So either you've got to reduce the dose, which doesn't make it worthwhile, or you've got to really put a ton of sweetener in there to mask it. And I'm like, I know it's pills, but again, popping them, there's no barrier.
Nice. Available very soon. Next up, last one of this range. Curcumin Plus. That sounds funky.
Yeah.
Talk to me.
Again, just a nod to that health kind of part. I think curcumin is something that there is more robust research coming out now from loads of different areas, from like helping with anti-inflammatory, with helping with gut health, with helping systemic inflammation, joints, but also helping with absorption of certain nutrients. There's some research coming out on absorption of iron. So for me, again, just nodding to that holistic approach. It was always something that we got asked about. Are you going to be in a joint supplement now? Are you going to, what can I do to help reduce my inflammation? I'm always sore after training. We started at a joint product. But trying, again, not to that, trying to get to what we're talking about, trying to get everything into a joint product. You'll see a lot of the joint products, the good ones, are like 6 or 8 pills. Or they're like a big serving of powder. And the problem is, it doesn't taste very good. And I tested all of those like powders. So what we wanted to do was just try and bring it down in terms of, okay, so rather than making a specific joint product, can we make something that's probably more beneficial for us that are just trying to improve our recovery from exercise, but also nod towards managing, modulating my inflammation levels. But then having a couple of actives in there. We've got some ginger, we've got some boswellia to help with this like managing that inflammation. So it's got joint benefits, it's got gut health benefits, it's got systemic inflammation benefits, it's got, you know, reduction of muscle soreness benefits. So for me, one capsule as well. We went down the route of sourcing a really, really good quality curcumin, which is pricey, but I think for me, this is genuinely a product. Again, I know I say it out of all, but I think for me, especially where I am in my life, like I want this now. I think this is going to be a really, again, nice addition, nice stack, and you can, use it as and when.
I think those of us that bury our bodies, CrossFit, functional fitness, high rocks, slapping the miles on the pavement, this is going to be a great product. And just your point there about, people often ask, what's the best training program to do X? It's the one that you can enjoy, sharp, and be consistent with. And it goes back to like, what's the best product? Well, it's one that you can be consistent with taking. And if something tastes funky and it's going to put you off, that's the last thing you need when it comes to just building healthy habits around whether it's food or supplementation. So very exciting for that one to come out. Okay, last topic, recovery nutrition. Now, often when people think about sports nutrition, they think firstly a good whey protein, which is worth its weight in gold. And let me tell you, the salty peanut butter is without doubt the best tasting protein in the world. Now, whenever I'm chatting to people in the DMs, I'm often saying, if there's one thing that you can maybe potentially save your money on and focus on first, is like, maybe save this, do the nutrition recall, see if there's areas where you can start to dot a little bit more protein into maybe breakfast or bolster that lunch or in that afternoon snack. See if you can bump that protein intake up. And only then should you think about supplementing with the whey protein. But it is very handy to keep in the cupboard for those moments when you're on the go, or if you want to mix in some yogurt, whether it's something you take every day or whether it's just there that you can go to it, it's going to taste great, it's easy absorbing, it's fast acting. It's a great product to have. But in terms of like that post training session or post run, whatever it may be, recovery nutrition, what are the big things people should be thinking about, whether it's nutrition first and then supplementation?
Yeah, I think recovery in general, like even more so than anything else, like the whole food approach, looking at your overall intake. And I think that's the key thing. Energy balance, ensuring that you're eating enough macronutrients, micronutrients. You can go into recovery nutrition. And again, people go like, oh, what do I need for anti-inflammatory? What do I need to help improve my recovery? I'm like, you need to eat correctly for the amount of, demand that you're putting on your body. Like genuinely, this is where you need to stay. And I will keep, continually bang the drum for that. Obviously, then going down the route of like, if we're looking at timing, there's lots of research come out now where the protein timing doesn't really matter. Like back in the day, you'd be slamming shakes as soon as you put the barbell down, but genuinely it doesn't matter. Like just get your protein in across the day. You can have a big bolus dose of, a load or 2 servings across the day, or you can spread it out. I think for me, it's figuring out what works for you. I prefer spreading it out. I think it's a little more practical. I think that can, fit into people's lifestyles a little bit easier. I think the satiety side of things, I think just general consumption of it is much easier if you do that. But if you are someone that's, manipulating the diet, maybe doing some fasting or just prefers 2 slightly larger meals, or you find it easier to get your protein in certain meals more, then use that to kind of get your protein intake out. However, carbohydrate intake, especially if you're doing more intense, longer duration, endurance-based stuff, I think carbohydrate timing is important, like especially in that post-workout period. Within that 2-hour period post, if you can get some carbohydrates in, then it's going to really help your next day performance. So for me, prioritizing that as opposed to getting it in elsewhere in your day. Like there's a couple of research papers now that, show that there's better benefits in that first 2-hour period. So if you can do that, you're winning. The amounts, again, is super hard, but I would always look for at least maybe 0.5 to 1 gram per kilo of body weight. That's a nice ballpark figure to start with for me.
For carbohydrate in the 2 hours post-exercise?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, so you're looking at me, I'm getting 35 grams to 70 grams, right? Could I eat more? Yeah. Like, if I've done a longer duration, depending on what I've taken on the run or on the bike or during my session, then I can maybe think about, okay, well, do I need to top it up? But I think most people can kind of like, get that in. It's not going to be causing you to have, massive, massive meal. You're chugging like, a liter of liquid dextrose and carbohydrates. Like it's a practical way to approach it and to kickstart the recovery. You can put some protein in there. I do think that's a sensible thing, but I would definitely look at your carbohydrate intake timing as well as your total intake for, especially if we're asking more of your body and doing more intense stuff. So you got that protein, you got that carbohydrates, and then fat. I mean, fat should be maybe kind of positioned away from the workout window a little bit more. And one thing that I would definitely look to be aware of is the quality of your fat intake. People can be like, oh yeah, I hit 60 grams of fat, but I'm like, that's from like peanut butter and peanut butter. Like, look at the quality. Like, where are you getting that from? Is it from meat? Is it from eggs? Is it from good quality oils? Is it from avocados? Things like that, dairy. Like, look at the quality of your intake, because that's going to help. That reduction of the inflammation. We talked about omegas earlier, the oily fish, the quality of the fat. It's definitely going to help. So something to be aware of.
Quick rule of thumb on this: 2 grams per kilo body weight per day.
Yeah, I think if you're anywhere in the range of 1.6 to 2.2, I think you're good.
Yeah. I
think 1.6 is probably, for me, a minimum effective dose. I think going below that, I mean, yeah, you can, but I do think that sitting in and around that 1.6 grams per kilo of body weight is a sensible thing. If you are dieting, I think you should be going up. And then there's a bit of a pushback recently in the science world to be like, oh, you don't need more. But then there's new research coming out to be like, actually, it may be even more than that. Like 2.2, 2.4 grams of coming out now to be like, actually, this is kind of, keeps going up in terms of the benefits of muscle retention and body composition. So look, you're getting into the weeds. You're starting to talk about 0.2s, like you're worrying about it. Don't worry about that. 1.6 to 2.2, you aren't going to go too far wrong.
And so that's our total daily intake. That's the big rock we should be concerned 100%. About in terms of how many servings, personal preference.
Yeah, like break it down. Again, consistency. Got to be something that you can easily do on a consistent basis day to day. And I do think that that's where protein can be, a nice addition. Very rarely take it post-workout. I mean, that is probably something that I have included more since we've had the salted peanut butter. But I would mix it into things. I would use it as snacks. I would use it in my breakfast. I would use it as, in the evenings or, whatever, rather than just focusing on post-workout.
Lovely. Closing that chapter, let's talk about some things that we maybe don't have in our range, because we don't have all the answers just yet. It is a process, and obviously we're balancing the research, we're balancing our supply chain, we're balancing the commercial component of bringing these products out, we're balancing the demands of our consumers, but we don't have, we've got a pretty extensive list right now. I think we're very content and happy with, particularly where we'll close the year with the new products coming out.
100%.
But what are the things that you think we're missing? One of the questions here is, what's your opinion on taurine? So that's obviously not in the range. What are we missing? Is there anything you're taking outside of the Marchon supplement offering? There are some great products and brands out there doing some good things. So
yeah, I think well, to answer that, taurine, I think it's a fantastic amino acid. There's lots of benefits in terms of cellular hydration, exercise performance as well. And there's more of a movement towards longevity, cellular health as well. And I think for me that there's a lot of benefits for it. I think around 3 grams a day. I would 1.5 to 3 grams a day. A lot of the literature suggested that that's a good place to start. Right. I use this in the morning, so I would mix it.
Sneaky bastard.
I've posted this on my story.
No, I've seen you post it.
Have I noticed a massive benefit? It's tough. Like, I've got kids. It's hard. Like, for me, I haven't noticed like that real kind of light bulb. But I'm like, I trust some of these research that's come out. It is going to be in one of our products that's coming out, more towards exercise performance, and it is something that I've considered in other things. So do expect to see it in our future products. Glycine is something that I've taken as well. I did think about putting it into the sleep product, but magnesium biglycinate, obviously we have a decent amount of biglycinate in there that has glycine in it, so it kind of has some of that in it. Again, you maybe need 3 to 5 grams if you're going to help with like sleep and recovery. Lots to do with like gut health and skin health, etc. I've kind of dabbled in around and used that sometimes. But ultimately, there's an enormous amount of products and ingredients out there. There's new ingredients being released all of the time. I would always look at the kind of foundational and the basics. I think one thing that we are in development with is a probiotic. So we didn't mention glutamine, but we have glutamine in here. I think this is a really underappreciated amino acid in terms of like recovery, in terms of gut health in general. I think, you know, that's a relatively simple product, but I do think the probiotic side of things and the gut health in general, again, it's not our first, you know, thing that we need to be thinking about, because we are trying to serve people that are improving their training and performance. But ultimately, again, that holistic approach, health and wellness, the probiotic side of things I've used in the past, and you know, I don't use one at the moment, but it's something that we have in development. But yeah, I mean, for us, that's kind of where we're sitting in terms of development. I think then once we have this product range, it is about looking at it from, you know, can we maybe bring a couple of these products in together into like not an all-in-one, but be a little bit more, you know, efficient. Can we then look at, you know, slight reformulations of a few products? You know, that's quite a big task. It's not that easy of a process to do. Obviously, you got people that use this and loved it, and you change it, and they're like, So it's actually probably easier to formulate something new. But we've got some stuff in the pipeline already for mid-2026 that, you know, again, maybe nodding towards that health, gut health, immunity, maybe bringing a few of the products in together. That again, it's in the pipeline, and I'm really excited about.
Lovely. A couple of just questions then to finish. These are specific questions people have asked. You touched on the taurine one there. We've spoke about mushrooms in the peak, but what do you think about mushrooms, and are you going to produce any specific mushroom products?
I like mushrooms in general. I think some of the research on some of them are more robust than others. I think you've got to be really careful about mushroom products. I think if they tested mushroom products on, like, not hammering Amazon, but like if they tested a lot of the mushroom products like they've done with the gummies, I would hang my out, and there's going to be a lot that aren't saying what they have in the actual product. You've got to be very careful going to a trusted brand. Mushroom products, they should be expensive. Like if it's a cheap one, you're using maybe an extract that doesn't have the active compounds in them. You know, that's something that you want to look for. Label transparency, you know, looking at what they're including, maybe even where they're sourcing it from, because it's something that people are using in different parts of the mushroom. You want to be looking at for the fruiting body as opposed to other parts of it. So you got to tread really carefully. It makes it hard to formulate on something, and I think having a single mushroom product or a single mushroom gummy or a mushroom blend in general, we're probably not going to do that. But weaving them into the products and weaving them into future developments is definitely something that I've always got my eye on. You know, stuff like lion's mane, stuff like reishi, like these things, I think I've used them, found a benefit. They will, I think, end up in some of our products in the future.
Have you seen any research across anything we spoke about, in particular adaptogens and nootropics, to suggest there are any negative side effects that people should worry about?
Yeah, I mean, I've got this question a few times. I think nootropics and adaptogens in general, there's actually very few long-term studies, right? So it's impossible to say. I mean, with most supplements, the creatine is probably the only one that's maybe kind of real long-term stuff, and obviously protein. So it's very challenging for me to sit here and say, like, definitely this is completely fine to take 3 years. So this is why we talk about cycling. This is where we talk about being aware. This is where we talk about, you know, looking in, you know, what you're trying to achieve, what you're asking your body, because ultimately that's going to help you to be smart with your supplementation. I think, you know, the more research that comes out on these products now, because they're becoming more mainstream, the more that we have. So that's always good. We look at side effects, but again, there's side effects of everything, because each of us are individual. Like, there's so much individualization. But it's being aware, and I think that's something that not a lot, you know, it's hard to do. You take something, am I aware, do I feel a benefit? But you should definitely be aware of the benefit, but also like the side effects. So again, that's a very generic answer, I realise, but like it's something that I am confident that the literature is going to catch up on, because these products are more mainstream now, so there is being more research being done on them. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they were very niche, so people aren't going to spend the money to test these. Like, so there wasn't that much out. So I would expect some more coming out soon.
Final question. What is your favourite product? I think you've probably alluded to it already, but...
Yeah, I think workout fuel. Like, you know, I've talked about this before. I think this was a product that when I was coaching, I wanted. So I wrote it out, I mapped it out, and I used to make my own blend. So I was just like, if I ever got the opportunity to create something, I'm going to create this. I'd sit there in the mornings being like, people would be like, oh, what can I take pre-workout? What can I take? I'm training at 5:30, I'm training at 6, whatever. And I was just like, I want something that just brings a few of these things in together. Because when I made this blend, I was like, wow, I feel so much different, so much better. And I didn't want just a straight carb powder. Do you know what I mean? I wanted, like I say, these actives. So for me, I think it has real use case. And then I wanted that caffeine-free version because, again, I play football in the evening. I have loads of athletes that train in the evening, that compete in the evening. And just, again, more caffeine just necessarily wasn't the answer. So providing that support from a carbohydrate, focus, nootropic, adaptogenic perspective, blood flow perspective, you know, was something that I wanted. And thank you, mate, for letting me create it.
No good. The GOAT. Right, let's wrap this up. This has turned into somewhat of a Joe Rogan podcast. We've been here for hours. But as you can all probably appreciate, there's a lot of nuance to discuss nutrition and different supplement protocols for people. One thing that Liam is very, very good at, if you have any targeted specific questions, fire them his way, and he's often then able to create content that's kind of, broadly speaking to a cohort of people that that he can help with that piece of content. So please send in those questions to him directly. One thing for you guys just to be very mindful of is we're building this supplement brand first and foremost as the consumers. We are demanding a lot of our bodies through training, through cycling, running, etc. But one thing that gives us a real unique point of difference is the fact that Liam sits behind this. He has his head in the books pretty much every day. And then it's a process, right? It's thinking about, can we get the right dosage in this? What is the delivery mechanism? What is the cost of goods to create this? Is it commercially viable? There's so many things that come into creating a supplement brand, particularly when you're bootstrapped, that many people probably don't appreciate. But hopefully you now do appreciate the great extensive range that we are building. We love all the amazing feedback. And if there's anything where you feel as though we could be improving, please give us that feedback, because we are very 100%. Open to it. 100%. So resources. Podcast 1 and 2 on the Without Limits podcast with myself and Liam to set the scene. You've got this now, which talks a little bit more about the different products. We'll probably follow up with this. I'm sure there's many gaps that we've missed, but go check out Liam's pages for specific ways to fuel different races and events, etc.